Okay. I see. Let's move on. This is from the IT department. Are you able to hear us?
Testing. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Happy holidays. My name is Sheila Dow Ford. Welcome to the William Penn Task Force meeting. I hear a little reverb. I'm not doing that intentional. I don't think this is a reggae club. I'm not sure why it sounds. Maybe you can get rid of that, or should I just pull back a little? Okay. Am I good now? Okay. Thank you. Welcome to the William Penn Task Force meeting. As you know, because of previous correspondence, we have two presentations tonight, as is always the case with the task force. We believe in getting right down to the work. A couple of just level setting matters. The first is, as I said, we have two presentations. Each presenter will be given 45 minutes to make their presentation. And we will have, at the close of the presentation, we will have 15 minutes for questions and answers. We know that your time is valuable, and we don't want to keep you here all night. We like you, but you have other things to do. And we want you to be able to hear what the presenters have to say, take that information, be informed, synthesize the information, take notes, but also ask questions that are pertinent to the presentations that are given. In terms of process, I have one for you. I have one for you. Okay. In terms of process, the way this will work is after each presentation, once again, 45-minute, up to 45-minute presentation, 15 minutes Q&A. The second presenter comes up, 45-minute presentation, 15 minutes Q&A. What we would like for you to do is to take those notes and take them home. And we will send to you a Google Docs questionnaire asking for your feedback. You will receive that within the next 2 weeks, because that information will be sent to the district so that the individuals at the district who are the decision makers will take under advisement the recommendations and the critiques that you have provided. That is the process that Dr. Lori Susky has requested, and we agree that it is a good process. We have used Google Docs before, and it will give us a good document that we can use to make some decent decisions about the next steps. Without further ado, then, what I'd like to do is to present the first presenter. And this is Mr. Brett Peters, and he is with the Pennsylvania Social Equity Investment Fund. Thank you, Brett.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that introduction. And thank you to Dr. Susky and the committee for inviting us to speak. With me is Christina Johnson, who is the executive director of Tri-County OIC. They'll play a very important part in this presentation. We have presented before to the committee, and we're happy to be back presenting the concept for the restoration of William Penn High School. Okay. Just need to be closer. All right, I apologize. It worked perfectly in practice. Yes, so about 8 years ago, the city began a comprehensive planning process, and as part of that, did extensive public engagement, the most extensive public engagement in the history of the city. And one of the interesting outcomes of that was when people were discussing the subject of historic preservation, historic resources in the city, the number one public interest out of all the historic resources was William Penn High School. 63%, a vast majority over the next few items, wanted to see William Penn High School restored as an uptown education center for the city. So when we saw that there was an opportunity to help restore the school, we started looking for programs that could occupy the school. And the school itself, if you take a look at the architecture and the messaging that the school created from the beginning, you see even over the doors, science, industry, and the arts. So we didn't have to look far because Christina is the vice chair of the land trust that we work with. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you need it close up? Apologies. Christina is the executive director of OIC, which is currently located at 5th and Maclay Streets. OIC has long ago outgrew its space, and they do vocational technical training of individuals. So this school was, of course, purpose-built for vocational training, and we began a dialogue with OIC about what kind of space they could use and how they could occupy this space. And it seemed to be a perfect match. So before I go any further describing the building itself, I'm going to let Christina talk about what OIC does.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. First of all, Tri-County OIC stands for Opportunities Industrialization Centers. A lot of people always ask, what does OIC stands for? So we don't want to have the tongue twister, so we always let you know it is Opportunities Industrialization Centers. We empower individuals and we transform communities. For nearly 6 decades, OIC have served as a beacon of hope for Dauphin County, Cumberland County, and Perry County. As a trusted community leader in adult education, workforce readiness, and vocational training. We focus on individuals who are unemployed, underemployed, unskilled, and face barriers for past due to past disruptions. These are comprehensive programs that we offer. We offer traditional vocational training, career training, and we offer re-entry services. The workforce development initiatives that we have. Just recently, we just finished up the first Dauphin County ever solar panel installation today. They graduated. We graduated 12 individuals, 4 who have just re-entered from incarceration to learn how to do solar installation. Okay, a deep connection. For 59 years, we have driven and transformed lives. Annually, we serve about 750 young adults and adults. We do this through GED training, high-set training. We offer forklift, nursing assistance. We have several programs in which we are able to enforce right away. We have a culinary program in which we have a world-renowned chef come in and they do the whole hospitality. We also have work development. In the last year, we have secured 110 jobs. Out of the 110 jobs that we've secured, I would be glad to say that 90% of them are still working today. And these are living wage jobs. So the minimum that they are earning is $18 an hour. So that is a living wage. 200 individuals we served last year entered into Dauphin County from federal prison, state prison, and Dauphin County prison. We were able to get those individuals. Out of those individuals, 175 of them received an industry recognized credential. What an industry recognized credential did for them was able to open up the barriers to level the playing field so that they were able to gainfully get employed. As OIC addressed the root cause of poverty and equip individuals with skills and opportunities they have dropped, we transform these lives and we also do what we consider to be a wraparound services. So anyone who comes through OIC becomes a family member and becomes a member. You are staying with OIC. Once you receive your trade, you have 24 months in which we still follow you. We prevent for you. We provide for you support services. We help you with housing. We help you with clothing, all the barriers that will keep you from being employed with OIC. And I think that
culinary program for the earlier uses here, and the lower, the southern 6 workshops there were the welding, plumbing, carpentry, all of those more construction related uses. So we would be reusing the entire rear part of the building, the shop wing, and also about 15 classrooms up in the front zone. One of our goals would also be to enclose, it would be skylit and naturally ventilated, but enclose the courtyard also as a community court where the culinary school could have a community facing cafe use. So that would take, as you can see, about half of the building all by itself, just for OIC. So a typical presenter on one slide ahead of myself. So yes, this is the correlation between the various workshops that we would use and the culinary program, including some CEA greenhouses that would be placed in the open space right outside the kitchen that people could use to grow fresh food and learn how to grow fresh food in urban environments. At this point, the OIC is the only firm program we have. We have been discussing with various folks for about 4 years as we've looked at this project, different uses for the front part for the academic components. And when we presented this concept in April, we were told to speak with CASA because they could be looking for new space, and we have toured their location and are in early conversations with them about the possibility of being in this space, but that would be a phase 2 component. Phase 1, as it is, I don't know if you can read the numbers, but when we put together financing for restoring the shop wing of the school, and I want to encourage, or I want to emphasize the fact that we are restoring this building historically correct to its historically correct form, I should say. The only difference we have is we're putting new mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and technology uses within the building. I don't know how many of you have been in this building, but under the first floor is an entire system of tunnels. So it's actually very easy to put new mechanical systems into this building. It's purpose built for that. And clearly when you've been inside this was built for the long haul as a piece of architecture. So at any rate, going back to this, we've done preliminary sources and uses sort of financing diagram, and even investing about $20 million into the building, we could still offer this to a group like OIC for about $11 a square foot, which is extremely reasonable. So we can convert this building back to uses that it was intended for, restore it properly, and it can still be very affordable for the academic and vocational technical groups that would be in the building. The phase 2, as we mentioned, would We would hope to attract an arts use. We were looking at an arts use formerly when we initially approached this project in 2018, 2019. And we would hope with that group to restore the auditorium, restore the former library. I know when we were talking about the current programming, there was an interest in a smaller presentation space that would function like a chamber music space or small dance performance. The library would be ideal for that. Of course, with an auditorium like this being restored, it would also be open to the public for events in the area, which would bring a lot of lively activity to Riverside, part of Harrisburg. In our earlier, some of the earlier tenants that were looking at this were interested in creating a soundstage for television, which would also be used for training. As you probably know, up Hoffman Street is where all the local television stations are located. And I've spoken with some of the executives there, and they'd be very interested in doing a training program in this location. So all of these need to be programmed into the front portion of the building, but we would hope to use the full building for academic purposes. Again, if you figured out the theme, we're trying to restore the building to function exactly as it did with the exact same programmatic uses as it had earlier. One thing that we're bringing to this that unifies the two programs is a MIT Fab Lab. This is a digital fabrication laboratory that would be back in one of the workshops. And this is an area where both of the student groups would cross over. This actually is the core of part of our educational philosophy for this building, which is if you go to a young person and say, would you like to join the construction industry? And they look at you and say, what would I do? And you say to them, well, we're going to give you a hammer and nails and you can put some 2x4s together. They're probably not going to be terribly interested in joining the construction industry. But if you tell them that you can use your computer skills to model things and then create them on a CNC, a cutter, a laser cutting machine, and then actually put them out in the public realm, that's a little bit more interesting, using digital skills and fabrication technology that we now have uniformly in our architecture schools and design schools all over the country. So we do have, through our board, connections with MIT. They're very interested in putting a Fab Lab into the site. And we're very excited to have that as sort of unifying component of the project. If we start looking at the entire building, we've actually about a month ago, I had a preservation expert go through the building with me. He put together a report. The interior of the building is actually in extremely good shape, surprisingly good shape. There's a little bit of water damage, but even the old walnut surrounds of the blackboards are still in pretty good shape everywhere. So it's, it's a very, very good candidate for restoration. A full project restoration would probably be, we estimate, about $70 million. And I want to emphasize that that's fully furnished. So that's able to move in. And even at that level, we're looking at a cost of about $15 a square foot, fully furnished, fully operational, to get people into the building. So I think that makes a lot of sense. To recap, we're looking at starting with Tri-County OIC. Any program the school district would like to put into the building, we would be welcome that. OIC has relationship with the regional vocational technical schools. So we would be moving people from other programs to this location for some of our specialty labs. We would be working with local unions and the AFL-CIO in terms of their apprenticeship programs, working with the MLK Leadership Development Institute for business training for the young folks, the MIT Fab Lab, as we mentioned, and local construction apprentice groups, bringing them all together. Why is this important in a larger sense? in a lot of the planning that we've looked at for the city, there's a tremendous amount of vacant real estate and dilapidated real estate, dilapidated housing throughout the city. And one of the things that we've identified there's a lack of is trained construction. Folks who can do both construction and maintenance of the housing stock. One of the things that we would do with the OIC program here is have a direct service learning studio where the people are being trained for construction skills, but also applying those skills on the housing stock of the city to create sort of rings of reinvestment radiating out from the school itself. That's called a service learning studio, and it's something that's integral to the curriculum that we would be setting up in this location. So that's our plan for this, is to restore the school and make it a catalyst for transformation of the city. So I think we're 20 minutes early. We can open up into Q&A.
I'll ask the first question, which has to do with funding. Can you talk about your proposed funding structure? I'm sure that the task force is interested to see how you're kind of stacking the, all of that, okay?
The funding structure is extremely simple. In order to set this up, the funding structure is basically set up around what I would call a worst case scenario. We're looking at essentially basing the renovation on a single USDA community facilities loan. So that would be 100% debt at about 8%. And we can actually get the rental rates that we get using 100% debt. With groups like OIC in there, I'm sure that we can get grant money and other monies for the program. But the fundamental financing, the basic financing that we're looking at now is not based on that.
And I might have missed this, but did you give us an estimate of the cost? I walked out briefly.
For the rear wing that has all the shops in it, that's a pretty rough and ready kind of space that you need. And those shop buildings are in pretty good shape right now. So that needs new mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems and equipment. Equipment's going to be the major funding back there, but we estimate that's about $20 million to do that. If you look at the source and use charts that we've provided, we do have a $10 million PA sites in there because we're assuming that we need to substantially restore the landscape around the building. One of the things that's very, very important to us is the idea that this building is actually a component part and nested within the green belt of the city. And we don't want a component
That's okay.
Yeah, a component part of the green belt of the city. And it's important to us that we preserve the green space around this building for community use. It's connected to Italian Lake, it's connected to the Grass Center, which is connected to Riverfront Park. And ideally, if the city moves forward with a Division Street bridge over to Industrial Road to Hack, you'll have a direct connection back to Wildwood and the rest of the green belt.
So it's clear that all of these ideas that were presented were lifted verbatim from ideas that the William Penn Task Force, who worked on this for months, put together. And it's a bit insulting that you have presented them as if they are your ideas, when this is a tale as old as time, that you have taken these ideas and presented them as your own, when these were the ideas of predominantly women and people of color. And so my question is, are you going to own up to the fact that these are our ideas and you just watched the videos or read the proposal that we put together, or are you going to continue to stand up there and present these as if they're your ideas?
These ideas came from the public engagement, not from me.
Okay, Okay,
Their,
so,
their public engagement, their
I'm going to-
ideas from the residents of the city.
hold tight, yes. Yes, okay, yeah.
I'd like to respond to Laura's comment. Mr. Peters had shared with Ms. Ford and myself that he had presented this exact proposal to the elected school board back in 2018-19 school year. And I did confirm that with Mr. Thompson a few months ago. And I inquired as to why nothing ever happened with this proposal. And what I was told was that the elected school board kept coming back over and over with a lot of questions. And every time Mr. Peters would come back and try to respond to those questions, the elected school board continued to ask more and more questions. And then COVID happened and everything shut down. So in all honesty, this was a proposal that he had put forth to the elected school board. And Doug, you weren't on the board back then. I don't think any of the board members, Brian. Okay, Mr. Carter, you were on the board at that time. Do you recall when this happened? I believe it was a committee meeting of the board. Okay, well, I know Mr. Thompson did share with me that this indeed did happen. So I just wanted to put that forward.
You're welcome. Let's move forward. I'm going to go to, all right, wait a minute. I have an order in my head. I'll get to everybody. I've got the mic. Brian's going to be next, and I'm going to Melanie, and then I'm going across.
Okay, I just had a question. You mentioned the funding and the rent that you'll be able to secure will service that debt in terms of the cash flow?
Yes.
And who would be the development team? What would that look like? I mean, development team, who would be the development team?
PSEIF would do the development.
I mean, the members of the team, the general contractor, the architect, architect, obviously, but the general contractor, who would be the G? I'm trying to get to, will you be hiring from the community? Will you be using, those folks who are from the community that OIC actually trains, by the way?
We're working with two minority contractors in the city right now. I'm not going to name them here, but we're working with two that we're trying to increase the cadence of projects that they're doing. Most of the folks in the city don't have a lot of capacity. So one of the things that we're trying to do is growing the capacity and growing it in a way that allows the firms to increase rationally and give them a backlog that they can look out for 5 to 10 years of backlog, so they can hire folks safely and with the understanding that they're not going to have to fire them after this job is over. So that's one of the reasons why we have the whole housing investment component that is placed in this. So we are creating a stream of jobs of construction projects, not only on this project, but 25,000 houses in the city. If you had a maintenance crews taking care of all the houses of the city, you'd be spending about $350 million a year on scheduled maintenance for that. So that's kind of what we can train groups to do. We have a series, like all of these projects. We actually have an architectural team that's a preservation architect. Then we have specific people who do education spaces. We obviously have an engineering team that would do MEP. I'm not sure, depending on how efficient we want to make that. I'm not sure where we would go for that. I would usually go to one of three groups. But I mean, if you want a slated development team, I can provide that for you. Yeah.
I think that would be helpful, because that was one of the issues of making sure that we provided opportunities to the community. And there are some developers who are doing a lot in the community now.
So the two minority construction firms I'm working with right now, we're lining them up for about $70 million of work in the city that they're doing exclusively. So, we're devoted to that and committed to that. We also have to deal with things like bonding capacity and whether these small groups can bond a $70 million project. They can't. We know that. So, I mean, you need to be reasonable, because when you go to the USDA, they have a checklist of things that you need to check. You can't say, I'd like to use this person, even if they can't actually accomplish those goals. So,
Okay, let's move on, right? Right? Ryan, you're good? Okay, Melanie's next.
Yes, good evening. The handout you gave, the print is very, very small, so it is not really legible at this point. Is this, or will this be posted so that we can view it online and develop questions?
we could give you a PDF to view it at whatever scale you like.
Okay, and on the original first page, the restoration cost will be about 70 million amortized over 40 years. Occupancy cost is listed at $1 per square foot. Is that where you meant to say 11?
month.
I'm sorry?
A dollar per month. So it's about $12 a square foot per
Okay,
year.
because it says on here $1, 1 SF. Is that what you,
Yeah, $1 a square foot per month, or $12 a square foot per year.
$12 per square foot?
Per year would
year?
be, that's the rent that an occupant would have to pay.
That seems incredibly reasonable. And then the restoration square footage would be 15, you indicated? At some point, you indicated that the square footage that would be assessed to occupants after restoration would be 15 per square foot, fully furnished, and
No, 15.
15.
15, yeah. The front part of the building, the old classroom part of the building with the auditorium, is much more expensive to restore than the back part of the building, the shops. So if you average them, it's about $15 a square foot for the whole space.
Okay. One of the critical components that the task force wanted to see is educational opportunities for young people who are still students within the Harrisburg School District.
Mhm.
It seems like the orientation of what you presented is primarily focused on adults, re-education, reentry population. How would it be set up so that it would benefit the students who are currently in the district on an ongoing basis from middle school forward?
The school district, I'm happy for the school district to bring any of that programming to me, and we can put it in the building. We have space. So you give me the program, we'll put it in the building.
All right.
Okay, I think, yeah, it's working. Thank you for your presentation. So you talked a bit about the why and the what, got a little bit into the how, but I have a few questions that I wanted to ask you just about the educational programming, since I think like how these things actually come to bear is the how, right? That's sort of like where the rubber meets the road on what can actually get done. So I'm curious about who develops your curriculum, if you are going to have like registered pre-apprenticeship or registered apprenticeship programs, if you're going to have construction training on site, and then what your case management looks like in general for folks. So we can just take that one at a time. Who will develop the curriculum for the trainings?
The curriculum will be developed and it is already stitched. We will have employed those who have a curriculum already in state. So right now, we currently have, like, just for instance, the solar class, we had that curriculum developed by the solar professionals. We had solar people come in. All of our training is actually done through certified. We also have a construction program that we're starting that will be done through a construction company as well as an apprenticeship part with it as well. So that curriculum comes already developed for us.
Okay, great. Thank you. For the construction training, will that be on site, or will folks have to like travel to maybe where a union shop or a contractor, a group has actual equipment to train folks on, or will it be on site at William Penn?
Well, that's one of the reasons why it will be on site at William Penn. Right now at Tri-County, what we do is we do all the training, and every week we have to travel to Philadelphia to get the training. So we have to gather all the people and travel. That's one of the reasons why we would need to expand it so we could actually bring it here and have it on site. So right now they do all their classroom here. So they come to class from 9 to 4 every day for 8 weeks. Anywhere from 18 to 20 weeks, depending on what program they're in. And they have to have it on site, but then we have to travel to the correction sites. We have to travel to the different roofs and things and do those things. So one of the reasons why we need to expand so that we can have it right here on hand site. And to answer your question, we can work with anyone between the ages of 16 and up, depending on that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Okay, sure thing. Question about the amortization of the $70 million. So does the 2 occupants that you have listed here, does that cover your full 70 million? I'm really asking about contingency planning in case one of your tenants goes insolvent or something and pulls out. Are there backup plans? Can you speak to that?
I'm actually having trouble
Okay.
hearing.
I can say it again. I'll speak more slowly. Maybe will that help? Maybe it's the sound.
It's the reverb, yeah.
Reverb. Okay, sure thing. I'll slow down then. So question about the amortization of the 70 million and contingency planning. The 2 tenants that you have listed here, their occupancy, that covers the full 70 million, right? Over 40, that assumes I'll be there 40 years. My question is, around contingency planning, should you have a tenant that goes insolvent or leaves? Do you have a list of potential other occupants and contingency plans there?
If we had, if we had a tenant that would go insolvent or leave, we'd have to replace them. That's, that's what you do when you have a property. Our assumption is that we're going to be leasing this property from the school district for 40 years, not buying it. So, as I mentioned, we had spoken to CASA, to the art school, about their candidacy for this. Somebody like that who's associated with the school district would be the ideal candidate. When we started talking about this in 2018, 2019, there were other arts groups that were interested in more film and television components to this. So I suspect if you have a facility of this quality, you'll be able to find people who will want to be in it. I can't imagine any space in central Pennsylvania that will equal this when it's restored properly. So I think it would not be hard to be able to get other occupants for this, particularly at the price point that we're able to offer it as a nonprofit.
Have another question over here.
Okay, so you answered my one question, which was who's going to own the building. So thanks for the lease statement on the record. The other concern that I would have, the concern that I would have is to give some more thought, because I know the current administration talks heavily about, student safety being first. And so that seems to be a direct conflict. Not that I'm anti-reentry or anything like that, but to have students, because to Ms. Melanie's point, this should be specifically repurposed with the intention on having our students in the Harrisburg School District having full advantage of those said programs that we're going to be putting in there. So that causes a direct conflict from my perspective. When you talk about reentry, et cetera, we know those populations can't mix, with students. So is this something that is a full day thought out process, or is this something as if it's going to be done after traditional school hours? I'd like you to talk a little bit more about that, the vocational training side of things. And I guess when we talk about CASA, who will be running that, and who will be in charge of the students that are being accepted into that program? That's heavy. And then the other side is the student response forms that took up, I'll say out of our survey, at least 23 pages, as I recall, of maybe the 70 pages. It was 20 to 26 pages of students' responses, and they talked specifically about the arts and sciences, ESL, and AP courses. And I didn't hear that beyond CASA in terms of being responsive to what the students said they wanted, as opposed to what adults say they need.
So if I'm hearing you correctly. So we would want to use the building for our adult students in the evening. And that way the campus would be open for the community to use with those that are 16 and up, that they actually appropriate for vocational training. So that way they would not mix, the two would not be able to mix. We can even use the building on weekends and offset that capacity so that they would not mix with those capacities. That's what we think. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Wait a minute, Lauren. Whoa, wait. We're- Oh, okay. David, I didn't know your hand was up.
So the OIC classrooms were on the diagram, were on the west side, southwest side of the building, which was attached to where CASA is going to be. So the blue part at the bottom, that L there at the bottom on the original diagram said that that was the OIC classrooms, that the classrooms were gonna be over here, and then the red, where it's red, are the industrial buildings. In the first slide, keep going forward. To before this, there, see where it's yellow, you said that that was gonna be where the OIC classrooms were. So they will be exactly adjacent to the CASA buildings, and if that's daytime, then they'll be there at the same time.
Just so you know that we service 3 sets of people. We have an adult education program for those people. We have a reentry and we have a workforce development. So reentry is just a part of OIC. That's not all we serve. So we do serve, we serve 1,098 people a year with ESL services, adults, and basic education and things like that. They are usually our daytime students that we serve currently right now, and we would be able to house them in currently. Right now, we serving them in 3 different locations. This would actually give them the one location that they can go to. We also offer services to the community. So those same trades that are offered to those that are in the reentry population is also offered to the community as well. So we kind of serve, they're kind of like sectioned off.
Well, just one follow-up is the use of the spaces is not cast in stone at this point. The lower, the south pavilions here, they have lower levels that are open to light and air. They would make perfectly good classrooms if we wanted to keep certain folks in out of the front part of the building for whatever reason. So, you know, this is essentially a test fit, explaining that we know we can do this building. We know we can restore it. The money makes sense. The occupancy makes sense. We invite an in-depth programming process with the school district for whatever uses the school district would like to put in here. If the school district wants to put none in here, we will find other appropriate uses, because we know in the 5-year process we've been engaged in looking at this building, there are lots of folks out there. The fundamental issue is site control. It's very hard to go tell somebody that you would like them to consider being in a building when you don't actually have control of the building. So I can run around and talk to all the people I would want to, but it's not a serious conversation until the school district says, we like your idea. We like the fundamental idea. And then you can actually go bring your tenants in. But you don't really, if you're in real estate development, you don't go ask for tenants for properties that you don't control. So.
Yeah, I just want to mention that I think it's actually a very good thing that the array of ideas that were generated by the task force are so remarkably similar to the array of ideas in your proposal. And rather than quibbling about whose ideas they are, the more important thing to me is, have these ideas been vetted from the standpoint of need? Each proposal, whether it's culinary or whatever it is, what's the need? And then the second thing that I think they all need to be vetted from the standpoint is sustainability. Where is the financial sustainability? And maybe that's been done, but But I think, that's how this is going to be successful, is if it's going to have reliable, long-term, sustainable funding for the various programs. And if that exists, if federal funding or whatever it is, great. But if it's going to rely on annual grantsmanship to pay for things, that's never going to work.
It's not. So the way this particular spreadsheet is worked out at both the phase one and the final phase, we take historic tax credits and new market tax credits that would be part of the project, and we drop the funding from those down to an endowment. So on the $70 million, the full building scheme, that generates an $11 million endowment from the beginning, which at about 4% generates about $440,000 a year of excess cash beyond what the programs are running on. So that could be used. I mean, that's just off the top that you get. So that's a classic endowment. I would volunteer to split the endowment between both of the organizations. Or just give it to the building per se. But what I've done, I'm blocking the crescendo moment here of the spreadsheet. There we go. But after you're done with the debt service here, and again, this is fully furnished, it's about $16.45 a square foot. If you take that money and simply pay down rent on that, it offsets the rent by about $3 and you get down to $13.70 for the rent. So that's one way of looking at it. The other way is pay your rent and then get additional money for your program. The third option is, of course, reinvest a portion of it and grow the endowment. So we understand the groups that we're working with. We have a built-in endowment in this program. I don't like going after grants as well as the next guy. We always try to have our tenants and the buildings make money and do a little bit more than breaking even. And in terms of the programs, the demand for vocational training is enormous. I will let Christina talk to that.
The amount of career opportunities for those who are not traditionally taking the traditional path of college has tremendously grown over the last 4 to 5 years. We actually use a task force services to figure out what is needed in this particular area. So we do a survey every year that tells us what are the high occupation jobs that are located right here in your community and what do we need to do to bring them to your community.
Okay. I'm going to ask, first of all, thank you for your presentation. Let's start there. And for responding to the questions that have been asked thus far. We have a few minutes remaining in this session. Melanie, I think you have a follow-up question. Are there any other follow-up questions? Okay, and one over here. I'm going to walk around and hand the mic over. Okay.
I think you had indicated early in the presentation that the OIC serves Dauphin, Cumberland, and Perry counties. Is that correct? So the individuals who would be coming in on a daily basis for the training would be from the Tri-County area?
The majority of we serve those areas, but the majority, 85% of our people that we serve are from Dauphin County.
Okay, do the other counties kick anything in, like Cumberland and Perry?
Yes, we actually right now, Tri-County holds the largest sorry about that, Title II providers for secondary education. So we currently serve Perry, Cumberland, Dauphin, and Cumberland counties in those areas. So we provide the education services for those areas as well. And we get that from the Pennsylvania Department of Education. So we hold that current contract right now to provide those services such as ESL, such as secondary education as well. So we currently hold that. We've held that now for the last 15 years. So we belong to a consortium. So right now, Tri-County is in charge of this consortium.
Thank you. One more question regarding amortization, and it's actually around the programs, OIC and CASA. If they enter as tenants, would any of these programs be new for them? In which case, it would be helpful to know if they have incremental costs to understand the risk around their being able to stay with you in your building. So any comment on that? Will there be expansion of programs that'll, cost more for OIC and CASA?
Yeah, I'll explain it. So just so if you do not know, OIC is a part of OIC of America. So we are an affiliate of the OIC of America. So most of our programming, we have over 55 affiliates in all different states. So we just decide what programming is area in this area. So when we do a standing, our parent company currently holds that expansion and that cost for us. Like this, how we got the opportunity for the Run Now Solar program. That training, actually, we could not find a energy company here to give that training for us. So therefore, we reached out to Philadelphia, and Philadelphia had Pico come down and train us, which is their electric company, to come down and train us for those programs. So they make it kind of consistent for us to be able to bring those. I kind of thought that was something that we should have in our area. So they kind of made that happen.
So you'll get funded by your parent organization. Okay, great.
I just wanted to know if you had any plans to utilize the athletic fields or if they would stay in the control of the school district.
The last time we spoke with the school district, they had expressed that they actually wanted to continue to use the athletic fields. I'm not sure if that's still the case or not, but it is our intention to restore the landscape around the building as it was. I think the structure of this building, the structure of this property is embedded in the hearts and souls of a lot of people who live in this community. And I think they'd like to see it continue to function as it was intended originally. And that's our fundamental goal. Yes.
This question has to do with CASA. I think we've talked a little bit about it. First of all, I want to verify, are we talking about Capital Area School for the Arts? Because there's at least one other CASA in the community that's totally different. It is,
Yeah,
okay.
yes.
That's currently headquartered in Strawberry Square.
Yes.
Is there some understanding that they're not happy with Strawberry Square or that they need more space or because a lot of philanthropists have donated money to fit out their current campus at Strawberry Square.
David, I can't speak for them. You need to talk to them about the happiness with their pleasure with their space. What I can tell you is that in most of the developed world, you can't put children in school in windowless classrooms. That's the suitability of that space for young people's education is something that I think folks should think about and look at the standards of other countries and other places.
But that conversation with them hasn't happened yet.
We've, as I mentioned, when we last presented to the school district, which was in April, we got some feedback from the committee that we should be talking to CASA. When we were contacted to come back for this meeting, I talked to Dr. Susky and said, is CASA still interested in that? And she said, well, that was an idea at the time. So I contacted them and went through their space to look at what they had to see how it could be mapped into a new school or mapped into the old school. And, it's an educational facility going into an educational facility. It maps very, very easily, readily into the school building. Plus this one has an actual auditorium. It has another space. I am able to, using other financial tools, I would be able to actually help Harristown restore that building as well. That's easy because that's in an enterprise zone. And we could enter into that and make a win-win for everybody.
In Harrisburg, we are seriously deficient in terms of Black arts. And have you considered approaching Sankova Theater, who needs space? They'll add to the economic development of this community and also to the education of this community.
We would love to incorporate them.
I'm sorry?
We would love to incorporate them in this.
I'm suggesting you may want to speak with them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, as always, the task force has asked the right questions. I do have one final question, and that has to do with, I think you have a land lease. Do you contemplate a land lease as a part of this?
Yes, we would enter into a 40-year land lease, and the advantage of that is it allows us to function as an owner under the law, which means that the school district wouldn't have to insure the property and would be, would not have obligations on this site during the period of the lease. At least that's my understanding. We would have to, make sure with our attorneys that that's the case, but that's the purpose of having a long-term lease. We'd also like to set it up so that if the school district would in fact need this building at some point in the future, there would be a mechanism where they could take it back early if there was capacity need for them. But right now, we just think that this facility is so important in the structure of the city, it needs to be restored and reused.
Thank you very much. Thanks to both of you. And you'll be hearing from us at some time in the future. Is that a fair statement, Dr. Susky? Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Please feel free to stay. Thank you. Stretch for about a minute. Minute stretch, just a minute. And then we move forward.
Transform your outdoor space with motorized exterior screens and retractable awnings.
Oh, wait a minute.
In-home consultation today. Time and Tip, sponsored by the Honda dealers of the Carolinas.
Everyone has the next handout? Okay. There's someone who has, is this your phone? Okay, so, okay, good, okay, for timing purposes, all right. The next presentation, if you're ready, is entitled Reimagining William Penn High School, a Vision for Community-Driven Revitalization. The Bridge Eco Village is the name of the presenter, and I would ask them to come forward at this time and begin their presentation, and we will start our clock. Thank you.
Not sure why you can't hear them, but they're saying, I am Gary Gilliam. These are a few students from the Milton Hershey School talking about their grit, their perseverance through adversity, never wanting to quit, taking care of their mom, things like that. And that as they grow older, they'd like to be Gary Gilliam. I'll wait for it to finish. All right, because it leads to me saying, I am Gary Gilliam. So nice to meet you all. Thanks for coming out. I am Gary Gilliam. Before I tell you about what we would love to do with the old William Penn High School campus, I'm going to tell you more about the why I do what I do, why the bridge is what the bridge is, and why it wants to take site control of William Penn. So I'm from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. My family's from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. They've lived here for a long time. Unfortunately, my family lived below the poverty line. So poor, they actually lived in an abandoned row home where they would steal electricity from their neighbors. My mom and her brothers and sisters lived in one room with a kerosene heater. Mom had to wipe soot from her nose on her way to school. Pretty tough situation, as you could imagine. Mom taught me a few things, though, growing up. One is how to fight. My mom's the youngest of 9 kids, so I think that's why she's a fighter, but she calls herself a bullier of bullies. An athlete herself, actually went to William Penn High School, and anytime she saw somebody getting picked on, she would beat up the bully. And so she taught me very early on a very similar technique. Obviously, as an adult, I've learned better forms of conflict resolution, but as a young kid, it was fairly useful. Mom actually fought so much, she got kicked out of school indefinitely. So then she goes, look, Gary, I don't care how big you are, how strong you are, how fast you are. What's that report card looking like? Right? Because at this point, nobody in my family had ever graduated from high school. So mom said, look, I know you want to play sports, but I need you to be focused on school. Then my dad doubled it up. We've heard the mantra, C's get degrees. Well, in my family, it was A's get you paid, right? So every time that I got an A, brought it to my dad, I got compensated. He was actually a bar manager at Piccolo's for a long time. And I mean, anytime I bring him my report card, oh, you're killing me, you're killing me. I would get straight A's. And at the time I had 12 classes. So I would get my $60 and he actually put it all in ones in a Crown Royal bag, right? So on a psychological level, that was really reinforcing a behavior, right? Pops added a stimulus to show, hey, I want you to continue this academic excellence. Now, unfortunately, around when I was in 2nd grade, the school district contacted my mom. I went to Melrose. And they said, hey, Gary's a great kid. He's doing phenomenal in school. He's getting good grades, but we think he's starting to get bored. He's starting to distract the other kids. He's talking too much. He's starting to act out. We think that we should move him from 2nd grade to 4th grade. Right? And that's a huge jump for such a young kid. So mom's like, well, unfortunately, this just confirms that the school district here doesn't have the resources I think my child needs to develop into who I think he can be. So mom, like any other mom, would find the resources that their kid needs. So one day, when I was 8 years old, mom and I took a trip to Hershey, Pennsylvania. Anybody ever been to Hershey? Most of us. And we didn't go to Hershey Park, Didn't go to Chocolate World. Didn't go to the theater or the gardens. We pulled up to that big white dome in the middle there called Founders Hall. And inside it was a bunch of marble and golden chandeliers and looked a lot different than anything that I had seen here in Harrisburg. We go in, grab a few things, and we leave and pull up to a mansion. At this mansion, there's a basketball court and jungle gym and kids playing, having a good time. I'm thinking maybe I'm going to a day camp or something. So mom's like, hey, baby, go play. I got to go in here, grab some things, and we'll go home. Mom goes in, and I'm playing on the swings in the jungle gym. She comes out, and I go to get in the car, and she's like, no, looks like you're having a good time. Keep playing. I left a few things. I found her, so I got to go grab them. I'll be right back to get you, and we'll go home. So I'm having a good time. I'm playing. It starts getting darker and darker, darker. My mom didn't come back. Right, she left me on the playground at 8 years old. Said, baby, I'll be back to get you. Didn't come back. This random guy comes out of the house. He's like, hey, Gary, it's time to come in and shower and get ready for bed. Right, I'm looking at this guy like he's crazy, stranger danger, talking about showers and bed, like I'm out. I took off running, chasing after me like, no, Gary, this is your home. We're your family. Your mom signed you over to us. So as you could imagine, as an 8-year-old kid, confused, feeling abandoned, do I get to see my mom again? Do I get to see my family? Right, one of the main reasons mom had taught me to be a fighter was actually to protect my older brother, Victor, who was born with a pretty serious heart condition. The Hershey Medical Center saved his life, but due to a couple complications, led him to develop cerebral palsy. Walks a little different, talks a little different. So mom said, hey, anytime a kid picks on your brother, you need to beat them up. Right, this was showing that anytime somebody gets picked on, whether it's by an individual or by a system, we need to find ways to protect them. So in this moment at Milton Hershey School, I'm wondering who's going to protect my brother? Like, why am I here? Who are these strange people? Mom dropped me off at Milton Hershey School. Founded way back in 1909 by Milton Hershey and his wife, who couldn't have children. So they dedicated their family's wealth and their company's wealth to start the Milton Hershey School, originally called the Hershey Industrial School for Boys, for little white orphan boys. Through the 60s, black males were admitted. In the 70s, females were admitted. By the time that I went in the late 90s, no longer just for orphans, but for kids below the poverty line, single parent homes, foster kids, all qualified to go to this school. In order for you to get accepted, you had to pass, for lack of a better term, like an IQ test. You had to have above average academic scores, which unbeknownst to me, I did and got accepted. Mom just had no idea how to tell me that this was where I was going to be and where I was going to live. And she knew that if I stood in front of her and cried and pleaded, that she would take me out. And I cried and I pleaded, and she did not take me out. I eventually realized I can't be homesick all the time and crying. The rest of my housemates and classmates are looking at me like I'm crazy. So I figured, hey, I got to distract myself from being at home. I need to immerse myself what the school has to offer. So I certainly picked up sports, football, basketball, baseball, track, ice hockey, swimming and diving. I also did ballet, jazz, and tap dance for 10 years. I learned how to play the piano and the guitar. I was in choir, I was in band. Again, I was doing all these things just to distract myself from not being at home, but the school offers these things very intentionally. It prides itself on being more than just this cost-free residential school, providing medical and dental, but it also provides all the wraparound services for the children to identify the intersection of our hobbies, our interests, and our talents. Then they teach us how to monetize them through a trades program. And they call this the whole child approach. On our basketball team, we called it the whole man concept. 4 pillars: mind, body, spirit, and community. Mine was about academic excellence. Right at the school, they didn't have D's, it went A, B, C, F. As athletes, if we didn't always have at least a C, then we did not get to represent the school. They don't care how good of an athlete you are. Body was about a commitment to understanding that your inputs dictate your outputs. You have to drink right, eat right, sleep right, and you'll produce the proper things. Mind, body, spirit Again, every kid at the school has gone through adverse childhood experiences. Whether you've seen your parents killed, sell drugs, sell themselves, myself included, seeing these things, fam, you got to talk to somebody about that, right? So the school normalized therapy, taught us about anger management and Tai Chi and meditation, how to gear our energy into more productive things. Myself, I was a Sunday school teacher in high school, had an opportunity to share my faith with the younger students. Mind, body, spirit, my favorite community. More than just picking up trash and community service, but much like the founders of the school, could you be a servant leader? Could you establish something now that would benefit generations to come? Is it okay to you to plant a seed today and maybe never benefit from the shade or the fruit of that tree? Right? Were you mindful and okay with things like that? So that was the whole child approach, the whole man concept, really the culture of the school. Once we got into high school, we went into the career technical explorations programs. And in order for us to graduate, we all had to get certified in a trade. Things like carpentry, automotive, health occupations, culinary arts, graphic design, video production, business. You had to have a national certification in your trade. You had to have above a C average. You had to have your driver's license, and you had to pass a swimming test in order to graduate. And once you did, it unlocked and qualified you for the continuing education scholarship, which meant whatever college, university, or trade school you get accepted to, the school would pay for the entire thing. So when mom came to me when I was in 5th grade and said, "Hey, baby, we've saved up some money, you can come home," I looked her right in her face and I told her, "No, Mom, my education is more important than your tears. I'm going to finish here. I'm going to go to college. I'll be the first one." So I did. I graduated from Milton Hershey School. I did not use my scholarship. I had earned academic scholarships to go to Harvard, Yale, Princeton, athletic scholarships to go to Alabama, Clemson, you name it, in what sport I could have did it. But I had a couple requirements. One, I wanted to be close to home. My family's still poor. I want them to be able to come see me play. Number two, I want a chance to make it to the NFL. If I'm going to play this game at this level, I want to get paid for it one day. And third, and most importantly, I need my degree to mean something. So I'm definitely not going to Ohio State. Yeah, caught that? Of course, I went to Penn State. Now, I had to lean into Milton Hershey School a bit. That is the inspiration for the motto of the bridge. So let me go back, actually. I had a few questions while I was at the school. One was, where are the rest of these campuses at? Right, why is there only one in the middle of Pennsylvania? Right, we need a few more. And two, and moreover, where are the other towns like Hershey? Like, where's Coca-Cola's town? Where's McDonald's town? Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, my guys. Where's your town at? Because Milton Hershey realized long ago it was more than just about a focus on creating jobs. He created an entire ecosystem for his workers. Places to work, eat, live, learn, and play. Hershey Park, Hershey Theater, Penn State Hershey Medical Center. He built homes, provided jobs. What it's yielded to this day in the town of Hershey are some of our highest property values in the state, some of the lowest cancer rates in the state, one of the highest graduation rates of a public high school in the state, an international destination, a global brand, and Milton Hershey School in some years has the largest educational endowment in the world. When we talk about people, planet, profit, philanthropy, perpetuity, that legacy we hear about, 20 minutes down the road, the blueprint has been laid over 100 years ago. So the second question was, why aren't other companies, corporations investing intentionally into the infrastructure and the education of the communities that they're in? Why aren't they creating these ecosystems? Continuing on. I went to Penn State. While at Penn State, I triple majored in business development, PR and advertising, and industrial psychology. And I finished all three of my undergrad degrees in 4.5 years because mom told me to. No, it was a standard. Much like Milton Hershey School with its whole child approach, Penn State had the grand experiment where Joe Paterno made sure we went to class every single day. You didn't go to class, you didn't practice. If you didn't practice, you didn't play. He reinforced that as an athlete, you shouldn't just shut up and dribble. You need to have a commitment to your education and to your community. Now, I'm going to skip a lot of this story because it's not relevant to what we're talking about today. But some of the most adverse situations in my life happened in college, almost a career and almost life-ending injury to my knee, switching positions, our coach getting fired. A lot had went on, but I did eventually make it to the NFL. I went undrafted to the Seattle Seahawks, who had just won the Super Bowl. They didn't really need a guy like me, but I knew if I had an opportunity and I controlled what I could control, that one day I would maybe get to where it is that I wanted to get to. I had a very unique role on the team. I came in during very special times, whether it be special teams or short yardage and goal line. One time in particular was in the NFC Championship game, which is the game right before the Super Bowl. And we were getting destroyed 16-0. And coach came to me and said, hey, we're calling a trick play. We need a comeback. And this play was called Charlie Brown. And this is how it went down. Wish you could hear all the audio there, but wow, young G from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, went to Hershey, Penn State, missed half my career, had an opportunity to make a huge contribution in the NFL. But there was a moment in my college career where I almost quit. Times were getting tough. There was a huge burden on my shoulders. My knee was in pain constantly. I wasn't sleeping. I was taking crazy painkillers that were taking a toll on my mental health. And I figured maybe if I quit football, I could become a whole man again. And it took a conversation with an individual at Milton Hershey School. I called her when I was a Sunday school teacher. She was pretty much like my boss. She was the leader of our religious programs and the wife of our athletic director. We had a great relationship. And I called her with how I was feeling, knowing that, I didn't have to keep playing football to get my college degree, that I had a whole scholarship at Milton Hershey. And I called her, I said, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. And I was crying. I don't want to carry this burden. Why me? I've been a man of God. I've been a whole man. Why do I have to carry this burden? She said something very important. Not that I hadn't heard it before, but who it came from and the way I was feeling, it just hit. She goes, listen, Gary, and remember, God gives the hardest battles to the strongest soldiers. What you're currently going through has nothing to do with you, but it'll be a testimony for the soldiers you lead one day. She said, listen, there's an anointing on your life that you will not understand today, but I promise if you control what you can control, your mindset, your effort, and your character, God will take care of the rest. So that was my mindset. Put my head down and I grinded it out. And as you could see, I eventually did make it to the NFL. I played well enough in Seattle to earn a couple more contracts in San Francisco. And enough about football, but more about the places I played. Seattle and San Francisco brought back that second question of when I was growing up, of why aren't there more Hershey, Pennsylvanians? Seattle, Washington has this thing called the invisible crisis. There's a lot of homeless people and there's a lot of drug use. They're trying to figure out why. Well, a little nod to my psychology degree, not that you need one to understand Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but before we get to self-actualization and investing in the education of an individual, we need to take care of their physiological needs, their food, their shelter, and their water. What happens when we don't take care of those things? What happens? Well, humans like to be warm. We like to be fed. We like to contribute to our families and our communities. And when we're cold and hungry and aren't contributing, what do? We like to change our state of mind. We don't want to deal with those things. And a few ways we do that are with drugs and alcohol. Down in San Francisco, if you make below $165,000 a year, you're considered low income. There is no middle class. Middle class are in low income homes, low income individuals no longer have homes, and we just spoke about what might happen when an individual doesn't have access to a home. Another big question I had growing up was, when NFL players do make it and they come home, why are they only holding football camps? But I could certainly hold the Gary Gilliam football camp and 300 kids would show up. Their mom, their dad, their Uncle Charlie thinks if they touch my hand, it's like Space Jam, right? They got the juice. They're going to make it to the NFL. Well, I'd be the first one to tell them no, look them right in their face and say it. I've met a lot of broke athletes. I haven't met as many broke plumbers. we as athletes, why can't we come home and do something beyond just a football camp? And I would ask my teammates that exact question. And they looked at me and said, well, I play football. Like, yeah, but what about a trade academy with it, or financial literacy seminar? You know, let's use football to attract people, but then pour into that. But something I had learned in business school was to identify a point of pain and solve it with a product, a good, or a service. To me, what that means is if you have a complaint, you have a career. So instead of wondering why companies and corporations aren't making these investments and why athletes aren't investing in their communities beyond football camps, well, Gary, what are you doing? So I'll address the elephant in the room here. We are the group that has had control of the old Bishop McDevitt. Delighted to provide positive news. Unfortunately, since early 2023, that project or that development was under a foreclosure, which delayed our process. Fortunately, that resolution has now come to fruition, allowing us to continue our development early next year. Be on the lookout for more updates on that. That's about as much as I'll give you there. But the motto of the bridge, much like we are finishing over at the old McDevitt, is one driven by observing and experiencing community disparities across many different sectors. The sectors include, but are not limited to, corporate workplace disparities, health and wellness disparities, generational wealth disparities, educational disparities, and mental health disparities, and not to mention our environmental disparities. Now, there are two ways that you can solve problems, both of which should be included. One is infrastructure, right? The intentional investment into infrastructure and education. I'm going to give you guys just a general overview here and allow my architect and the rest of my development team to dive in deeper to the uses, the organizational structure, and the risk management of this project, but I'll give you the high level. Much like Milton Hershey did in Hershey, the bridge proposes to create mixed-use developments out of dilapidated properties, places to work, eat, live, learn, and play, a true ecosystem, not just a focus on multifamily or medical or this or that, but having them truly together in a village. Co-working spaces, maker spaces, restaurants, farming, housing, education, entertainment spaces. Very important to have the infrastructure and the place making, but it's not enough. Our nonprofit, Empower at the Bridge Foundation, is one of the anchor tenants inside of our developments. They're housed in our community center that we call the Jedi Innovation Center. Jedi stands, no relation to Star Wars. Jedi stands for justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. That leads to innovation. This is the one-stop shop to bring all the local nonprofits together to have shared resources. The main bridge that Empower at the Bridge Foundation looks to create is a small yet very important one between the availability of resources and the accessibility of resources. If I'm a single mom with 3 kids and I got to catch 4 buses to get to daycare, to get to the grocery store, to get to the credit repair place, I may not use these resources. What the bridge proposes is to bring all those resources together. Building a bridge between the availability of our resources locally to the accessibility of those exact resources. We don't look to recreate the wheel. Luckily, due to the work we've already done at the old McDevitt, we've already identified many organizations locally that fit into each of these categories to provide our self-sufficiency programs, as we've been doing over the last few years. So with that, I will transition to my architect from Murray Associates and Architects, Benedict, and he's going to walk you guys through our proposed plan for the William Penn campus.
Evening, everyone. Again, I'm Benedict from Murray Associates, so I'll go through some plans. Is that okay? Just a little closer. Okay. All right. So just to give everybody a sense, this is the current site as we know today. Main building, I'll refer to this as the main building. I'll refer to this as a series of pavilions across the back. Of course, we're over here at the Academy this evening. This is play space where Pee Wee football and things occur, and this is the existing track. So looking at things 3-dimensionally gives everybody a little bit of a sense of this main entrance, this elegance, and as this starts to talk to and become part of the surrounding community. Looking at things here, this is the pavilions I'm going to talk about. Our main building up front, 2 gyms. Folks know this is where the fire was, so I'll talk a little bit about that. Currently, we have about 70 parking spaces on the site. And we looked at what we could do with our development. So we are not going to do anything on this edge of on the north side of the site. Of course, the academy will stay where it is. We're proposing to redevelopment the main building, the pavilions, and then add some additional housing and some additional retail and some other services off of Division Street coming right down here. As we start to look at that plan, this still remains the main entrance. Currently, the building is not accessible. As you folks all know, it will be fully accessible during the design and the implementation of this plan. So stair towers and things on this side will be accessible. The main entrance will be quite a bit of restoration work on the facade. Right now, the frieze and things need some love. Also, we'll be working on these interior courtyards. We'll be adding elevator shafts, vertical circulation, things to make the building fully accessible. We will be taking down this portion of the building where the fire was, and also potentially this second gym. Right now, this is the girls' gym. This was the male gym, and this is one of the courtyards. This is one courtyard that we're proposing to infill. We would repurpose this courtyard and repurpose that courtyard. The new housing and retail is beyond. We look at this corner. This building has a connection to this pavilion. We're in discussions with potential solar farm developer partner. So that's what we're looking at, all the different solar panels located strategically on the roofs of both the existing building and the new building. Another view looking at the main entrance coming off of Division Street, have its own dedicated drop-off, residential retail on the first floor, easy access to the surrounding neighborhood here on this side and certainly north of the project. But then this main entrance being restored and really wanting to extend the dialogue between this main entrance and Italian Lake and the surrounding community. So in proposing the programs for this main building, right off the entrance, we would propose to have a police presence. So right now that doesn't exist here. There would be police here, rental and some other agencies. This portion of the building from this side is very public. So we're talking about maker spaces, office spaces, places for classrooms, places for people who want to start a business to come in and have a place to go there. Could be a small recording studio, could be some other things that allow someone who does not have access to that to get there within walking distance. This incredible auditorium, she needs a little bit of love. I'm going to show you what we're going to propose for that. That would be restored as well. This venue now becomes extremely important to performances for the community, brings just a lot of activity into the facility. But then this wing and this addition, this wing and this addition would be housing, focused primarily on senior housing. Adjacent to the parking, as I mentioned, we're taking this part of the building down where the fire was last year and taking this other gym down. We maintain this horizontal connection so that this part of the building can function either with functions that are happening in the pavilion or again separately. This is currently a courtyard. We're going to infill that with an educational opportunity. Then across the back, these pavilions become academic spaces. This is a satellite facility for the fire department. This is also another opportunity for police presence on what is the east side of the building. Again, with this being the edge of the academy, overseeing parking things. So this building would have police presence on both the east side and the west side, and then managers' offices and things within the residential community looking south. We continue up through the building. We will go back and restore the balcony of the auditorium. We will have residential units then on the second floor. The various boxes represent 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, or 3-bedroom apartments. Primarily a lot of 1-bedroom apartments. Again, that configuration can be changed as we continue to develop the design. We would maintain this gym, and then we start to infill this courtyard and start to look at how we utilize these pavilions. The pavilions are 26 feet high. They're beautiful spaces. They have incredible potential. I'll show you that in a bit more. This is the 3rd floor of the existing main building. Currently, it's a series of classroom that would become the campus offices for the leadership of the campus. And we continue to develop and extend the housing up. We are introducing green roofs and things on the housing as we get to the upper level so that folks who not only live here, everybody can get access to those. And we've introduced something that I'm calling a commons for each area so that while you're in your apartment, you're still coming out to that commons area, that community space so that you're not always in your apartment. You get to know your neighbors, you get to do things within this floor and other floors. So from the main entrance, the building again will be totally accessible. We'll be replacing all the windows. We'll be replacing the roofs, we'll be restoring the facade, repointing, just addressing a lot of the deterioration that's occurred in the building. We'd love this to be much more of a community garden, much more of a formal language, extending again out into Italian Lake, and then our new housing coming off of Division Street. Certainly, any development needs to have a presence at night, but it doesn't have to be a landing strip. So here again, very respectful use of lighting and things to create a community between the existing building, its main entrance, and allowing public venues here, but then also have people that live here merely walk across and participate in those venues. This light piece back here, that is our infill of that courtyard. So this is what the theater looks like right now. There's no seats. There was an abatement program. We would look to restore seating. We also would look to include a series of seating boxes, if you will, a box on this side and a box on this side, which allows you to finally be able to get to the stage. Unlike this particular venue, you'll be able to walk from any place and get onto the stage. So it's completely accessible for any type of event. We'll also be looking to take down if you've been upstairs, the balcony was enclosed and it was created that the school used as 3-tiered classrooms in the past. We'll be restoring that, removing this, restoring the elegant ceiling, new features. We are looking to possibly extend the stage as well so that we can make this very important connection on the side to get onto the stage. I mentioned the pavilions. This is what the pavilion looks like right now. One of them, in some cases, there's acoustical ceilings that are just kind of on the underside. There's one that had some significant fire to it. We're looking at making maker spaces here. The idea of having academic spaces are, yes, there's spaces here for trades, for physical using hands, smaller spaces. We also want to be careful though not to duplicate too much here because the school district has a relationship with Dauphin County where you can go and learn how to lay masonry. You can go and do some carpeting. We can still do some here. We can also have some of the major companies come into a lab or two here and actually do some training here with the folks who they may get jobs with, may get internships with, et cetera. But we think it's important that we're also introducing technology into these spaces by using a lot of different things and getting people interested in what I do. I don't sit at a drafting board anymore. I do 80% of my work on an iPad now, which means I can work anywhere. Put a pair of goggles on and I can take my work anywhere. So we think it's important to maximize the spaces here and really create some fun spaces for students. And also, purpose of these pavilions is, yes, during the week, they're for students from school district. On the weekend, we have a dedicated entrance where you can have access for older students and older adults and things to get access to it as well. So it's not just serving one community. I mentioned that infill of that courtyard. or we'd really love to do some aquaponics and hydroponics here. We'd love to infill a portion of that and create that a two-story space that we can start to talk about farming. Unfortunately, Harrisburg is a food desert. It'd be very nice if we can start to look at doing something here. Ultimately, this may become much more of a vertical farm, by which then a partnership can be developed with other folks here in Harrisburg to be able to take fresh food. The whole idea of farm to table, how nice would it be to be able to take something grown here and literally walk it right across the street to take to the cafeteria in this building and also serve the rest of the Harrisburg School District with food that's being grown right here, 365 days a year. So this hallway, this is what it looks like the last time I had my team in the building. All these windows would be restored. And when you walk down this long hallway, to your right is labs. Used to be, this is the east side of the building. So this is the central plant and things. This is what we're proposing this would look like. So you're seeing educational opportunities and being engaged in them. Even if you're not sure what it is, you can still walk in and still be part of it and learn. And maybe this becomes something you want to end up doing in the future. Gary got involved in Milton Hershey in a different way and was exposed to a lot of different things. That's what we want to do, but not wait till people are 11th and 12th graders. Get them when they're in 4th grade, 5th grade, show them some different opportunities. Apartments, one of the incredible things in the existing building is the ceiling heights. We have 12-foot ceilings. We're not going to get 12-foot ceilings in a new apartment building. Have them here. Let's maximize what that looks like and feels like. We have incredibly large windows. Again, natural light is a very healthy thing. So looking at where we can create 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom apartments. And then we have 2 major courtyards. Right now, about 95% of the windows are broken. I couldn't get to either one of the courtyards. So we just want to give everybody a sense of the scale. This paver is 4 foot square. That's how big these courtyards are. These courtyards are an opportunity. Everyone who lives here, for the community to come here. How wonderful would it be if we could have a dinner party before a show at the theater or do something afterwards and bring people into the building and partake of some of the spaces that we just don't have in Harrisburg. We don't have this anywhere else. So we look at doing different things with housing, balconies, different colors, different textures, different sizes. We want this to be a fun space. As you come into the building off of Division Street, there's retail across the bottom, potential healthcare entity, other retail, so that this becomes a destination and a support structure for other things happening in the community, not just for the occupants here. Maybe. Okay. All right. And then just an idea of what that lobby might look like, with the idea of having a courtyard and things on the inside, again, for community events. You don't have to live here to be able to use the courtyard and use some of those public spaces. It's important that the community has a place to go, because right now, a lot of folks that live here don't have that opportunity. Tom? I've got Tom Jones. He's going to give you some additional. All right.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tom Jones. I work with the Bridge team. I'm responsible for the execution side of the project, working with the general contractor, professional services, and things of that nature. I'm also tasked with putting together the initial pro formas. We'll go through approximately 6 to 7 variations of pro forma as we get through feasibility and the designs begin to refine. But one of the things that we're very, very conscious of and are very, very much aware of is what happened in the development space in fiscal years 20 and 21. It was brutal. It was ugly. And one of the things that you're seeing here, what's driving design and what's driving the way the campus is looking, is to essentially put us in a position to be able to put together dependable, expected revenues from partnerships not only with the municipality, but with the housing authority and other professional groups under master leases and things of that nature, because we want to create a credit enhancement that gives the investors and the lenders confidence that in the event of another pandemic or something of that nature happens again, you don't have a crisis of operation, which as you all can see here and now, you can drive through literally any area and see a bunch of vacant buildings, commercial leases no longer operating, storefronts are dark and things of that nature. So it's very, very important to us as we were putting this project and this plan together that we build a capital stack that can work with and work for the investor community because that's extremely important that this project is sustainable and that we don't have to rely on extrinsic funding and capital from the city or from the municipality, but we're able to put a plan in place that can work. So essentially, our capital stack is going to look this way. I know that looks like a lot of stuff up there, but it's actually very, very simple. Right down the center core are the components of where the capital is coming from an equity perspective. With bridge loans, we're kind of layering the capital in the deal. And what we intend to do is to syndicate the capital by phase. So we're going to condo the financing on a phased basis so that we can spread the risk across the project and not expect someone to walk up with $100 million and feel confident and comfortable that we're going to be able to pull that off. So on a per phase basis, we essentially are setting up a capital stack where we can leverage equity. We take out any early equity that comes in the form of a bridge loan, working in close proximity and partnership with the CDFI. From the CDFI, there's a number of programs that we can take advantage of through microloans and some of the things of that nature. Pennsylvania, I'm finding out, is a very friendly development state. We've looked at a number of the programs, the grants and subsidies that exist today, and there's over 68 of them altogether. And so the challenge is to really put together the capital stack so that grants, subsidies, and low interest loans aren't working against one another. And so everything needs to complement. And as you layer the capital in to take out capital on a out-phase basis, you're not in conflict with one another. So we essentially are going to move from equity to mezz debt and using the mezz debt, which triggers additional grants and then microloans. We will then move into construction financing. From construction financing, we're able to, from a timing standpoint, because everything that we're talking about here is somewhere between 9 and 18 months. But from a construction financing standpoint, we can take advantage of tax credits based on our programs and based on the strategies that we've laid out, both low-income housing on the 4% side as well as new markets with a 9% tax credit. A big thing that's going on now in the marketplace, and I'm sure a lot of you know, are the pre-sale of tax credits. And with that, that's another enticement for outside capital to come in and really invest in a deal with a very nice return. This entire project needs to look like a project that will attract outside investment and not have to rely on what's going on in the municipality or the school system because it's too burdensome. And you definitely don't want to do that. One of the things that we're also proposing to do is to work in partnership with the municipality and the school system. And by that, I'm talking about not being full partners where you're actually sharing in the revenue, because the real asset in this project is the campus itself. And so why not leverage that so that you can raise the capital that you need to raise and then share in those profits as the project evolves. So with that, what I'd like to do is kind of bring Alan Smith up next, and then I'll have Russ close out. Alan is our grants and equities developer, subject matter expert. He's been responsible for generating quite a bit of capital over on Market Street, and I'll let him talk a little bit about that.
So before we move to that, where we are, first of all, thank you for the presentation. So what we're going to do is hear that through a brief question, because I think folks want to hear this portion of the presentation. So come on up and tell us what, I'll ask the first question around the grant funding element of it, if you would talk about that. But what we're going to do is actually ask is kind of do a hybrid session where there are questions, we will incorporate that into your part of the presentation.
Sure, not a problem. But not to interrupt the quorum, I'm actually a STEM engineering teacher at the Chester STEM Academy, whereas a lot of the things that you're looking to do here, we actually do there, and we're very excited to help you with this particular project. It's very near and dear to the community. The actual grant subsidies that we're talking about, two grants that we already have at the bridge, our bridge up at Market Street, $7 million of RACP from the governor's office. So we already have, capital injection from the grant equities, and we're not really in a start from ground zero position. We look forward to working with PHFA for the various housing projects, from the senior to the 9% and the 4%. And then also the new market tax credit. We've already applied for reservation of new market tax credits, which they have been allocated from the Fed this past fall. So we're looking forward to working together with this phased project that Tom has already described, and we're looking forward to community input as we go along the way. So at this time, we'd like to entertain any questions that you might have.
I think we have a question here.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. So I love this concept so much. However, it feels like a concept. And I think we need to get down to a little bit more of the details, a little bit more of that how, right? So we talked a lot about the powerful why, talked a little bit about the what. Would love to better understand. You talk a little bit at a high level of like the capital stack. Do we have any budgets or like construction schedules or like partners that you might be working with? I saw a couple partners outlined, or just like at what point you would be ready to sort of hit the ground running. I think one of the things top of mind for me is not only should we be looking at a project that has a great community impact and is impactful for the students, but is also shovel ready, right? We don't want to lease something from the school district that doesn't start for 5, 6, 7 years. So if you could speak a little bit to those things.
Sure. Based on the timing around putting this together, we've had less than 90 days to do it. So everybody's been it's been a real fire drill. We could have listed by name the entities, the lenders, the investors in the groups that we've been working with. We actually, under some concepts, have term sheets. We already have term sheets. And as Alan has already said, we have secured funding for Market Street. This becomes, each site is an independent standalone entity in itself. It's not codependent on what's going on in Market Street has nothing to do with what we're talking about here. And so we essentially have built and developed a template to be able to do that. And I can actually get granular and tell you by entity, by loan institution, which groups we're working with, who we're talking to, who we have term sheets from, and what the plan is.
So let me just interject very quickly. Is it fair to say that as Dr. Susky and her team evaluate your proposal, that you will be able to provide that information to them?
Yes. The answer is yes.
Thank you. There's another question.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Also programming, since you're really standing up a lot of programming to fill the space, are there costs that can be listed out so that we can see kind of more of a cash flow, like a projected cash flow over time? Will that be provided?
So the short answer is yes, but candidly, from my perspective, what I'm focused on right now is the actual construction component of it. I'm working very closely with the general contractor We've put their construction budgets together, and so we're entering into a phase of negotiation. You know, they price risks, they build in risk, and the numbers are what they are. And then as designs get refined, then the numbers come down and everything kind of lines up. We understand from a programming standpoint what needs to go in this space. We make a determination as to what's going to be delivered as a shell versus what's going to be a fit out and how that works. And that's when the pricing gets a little more granular.
Okay. And also real quick, you mentioned about profitability, like if you could provide some detail on that, with the, like you mentioned some investors getting profits. I didn't quite understand how.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you could provide that detail, thank you.
So there's a notional pro forma that's put together right now that has some gaps in it because designs have not been refined. But we do have notional pro forma that's put together, and we would talk about working in concert with the municipality or the school system to negotiate those splits in terms of how that would work and how those payouts would happen, either quarterly, biannually, or annually.
As far as the programming concerned, we have a simultaneous project whereby we're, using the bridge model to pursue programming grants. So it's not going to be, say we execute flawlessly the construction funding, right? But now ribbon cutting, where's the programs? Well, so because of this phased approach, we already have an action plan, that is already working forward towards programming grants that are simultaneous. And we'll get a chance to show that in our pro forma.
I'd like to introduce at this point Russ Dinkins. Thank you, Alan.
While we're doing that, Brian Hudson has a question.
Sure.
Hey, Tom, how you doing?
How you doing, Brian?
CDFIs, are you talking to multiple CDFIs right now, or how are you handling that?
Well, I was going to mention that we would.
Community Development Financial Institution.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. I've had the privilege of meeting Brian and his organization. And so locally, Brian has been kind of providing some guidance, some oversight, some advisory in that space. And he's actually opened my eyes. So right now we're currently looking at just one, Finanta.
That's
and so
Community First, formerly Community First Fund.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
That's the one that we're working with because we're trying to keep all of that local at that level.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Makes sense. And then I see, I'm not sure if you're going to cap your investors, the number of investors, because
yes,
they're going to be looking for a return. So
yes,
it's going to be pretty competitive, I'll say.
We've put together an equity participation schedule, and we've capped it at a certain number, and we've capped it at a certain level of equity participation. And I think it's somewhere like 13 to 15%. We're not going higher than that. And we have a set number of people that we're going to allow in.
Okay. All
okay.
Right. Good. Yep.
So one of the things that we're doing that we have learned, lessons learned from COVID, is that we really need to ensure that we have continuity of operation, continuity of revenue, and things like that. So we put together we're putting together a pretty robust risk management plan. And so we actually have a focused component to that with a subject matter expert and his team, Russ Dinkins, he's covering that for us. So I'd like for Russ to just go over or touch on what he's doing for the project and the program so that you all can understand how we're thinking beyond just the bricks and mortar and what's going on today, tomorrow, and the next year from now, but how do we insulate the project from any downturn in the market or, God forbid, another pandemic. Russ?
I'm gonna do the best I can. Good evening. Okay. As Tom stated, my name is Russell Dinkins, and I serve as the principal partner of Banneker Financial and Risk Management. There's my slide. At Banneker, we pride ourselves on delivering unparalleled expertise in a range of disciplines critical to the successful execution of complex projects. Our core competencies include comprehensive risk management, real estate services, risk governance, financial oversight and optimization, claims adjudication, and assurance expertise. We strategically identify, address, and mitigate the complex risks that come with real estate development and construction projects. Our goal is to ensure that every project runs efficiently, on time, with minimal disruption. From acquiring real estate assets to developing and marketing residential and commercial leases, we provide a full spectrum of real estate solutions. We take a hands-on approach to property management, ensuring spaces are not only functional, but that they're thriving. Our oversight ensures risk mitigation remains a top priority, whether it's implementing property and casualty systems or delivering employee benefit solutions. We safeguard our stakeholders' interests at every level. With expertise spanning for-profit and nonprofit accounting, we ensure fiscal responsibility, resource optimization, and a steadfast commitment to best practices and financial stewardship. Solvency and sustainability are the heart of what we do. We address the claims process with precision and fairness, working closely with existing brokers, property managers, and insurance carriers to deliver equitable outcomes that protect investments and promote confidence. So at Banneker, we employ what we call the DAD approach to risk management, which is data collection, analysis, and decision-making. This method allows us to pull critical insights from development partners, construction and property managers, C-suite executives, outside consultants, project stakeholders, and insurance professionals. By leveraging this wealth of information, we effectively manage construction, financial, and operational risks at every stage. Our comprehensive risk management strategies are designed to safeguard a project's operational integrity and financial solvency, both during development and long after construction is complete. Through rigorous oversight, strategic partnerships, and a commitment to continuous improvement, Banneker sets the standard for resilient, successful projects. So we don't just manage risks, we establish a benchmark for excellence. So we're excited about this project, and we thank you for the opportunity to serve your community.
Yes, thank you very much for this presentation. Would your group be available if we have additional questions beyond tonight? Would the opportunity exist for us to sit down after we've reviewed your material and develop questions, more extensive questions to be answered?
Yeah, I believe you're going to give a questionnaire, right?
Yeah. Okay, because believe me, I'm going to have a lot of direct questions that a Google Doc may not be the absolute form. A question that I had is the housing component. Are you proposing to have residential units within the William Penn current main building?
Yes.
Yes. And
Focused on senior housing in the
on
main.
senior housing. And would you be open to other populations at risk youth, kids who are transitioning from foster care into the units? Also, the residential structure that appears to be proposed now, it's about 4 or 5 stories, and it seems, quite frankly, overly large for the space. I live in that immediate area, have for decades. So it looks like it's going to be oversized for the land. And it also, to me, does not look like it's going to fit from an architectural design standpoint into the existing communities. Are you locked into this, or is this something that can be modified? Questions that I would have, like how many units are you proposing? I think I heard you say 1 bedrooms. Is that for the William Penn? Would this standalone structure be limited to 1 bedrooms, 2, 3 bedrooms? Just questions of that nature. I'm very much interested in discussing that.
Yeah, so the master plan is still being refined, and we are.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the master plan is still being refined, and we are open and certainly expect to work with the community moving forward to figure out exactly what types of spaces are needed most in there. The William Penn High School campus was actually the first campus that I had targeted before we had got site control of the old McDevitt property. And actually, that was at the recommendation of our city planning director, Jeffrey Knight, who suggested we go talk to Chris Selmer and Dr. Samuels, who were the leaders of the school district of that area at the time. We had a full plan actually well put together, and we're very much interested in purchasing the property and moving forward. Around the same time, though, we did have an opportunity to secure the old McDevitt property and move forward there. And then obviously the pandemic happened and communication kind of ceased to exist after that. So the fact that it's now come back into our crosshairs is very exciting for us. All that to say that we have worked with the community already to make sure that this plan here does include everything that we have has deemed as useful and needed within this community specifically. So all that to say that the height of the buildings, how many units, all still to be determined. Our team, as Tom had expressed, was really a sprint here over the last 90 days to put what you saw tonight together, which if I will say is rather impressive of my development team. So we'll only continue to refine that as we move forward and do welcome conversations with all task force members and the community at large to make inputs there. This isn't a bridge project. This is a community project by the community and for the community.
Yep.
For questions, and then we'll have completed the process of this phase of the process. Ryan Smith.
Okay, Gary, good presentation by you and your team. I didn't want to make an assumption, but are you contemplating leasing this from the school district or ownership? I want to make sure that's clear. What type of structure did you look at?
Yeah, I'll let Tom touch on the strategy.
Okay.
Brian, one of the things we wanted to do was we understood that there was a mandate for a 99-year lease.
Okay.
And so when we were looking at that and then going out into the marketplace, talking to the secondary capital markets, private equity investors and things of that nature, what's coming back to us that we wanted to propose was that we look at a public-private partnership, a P3 model where you're actually our partner. And so the school system would actually participate in what's going on the plus side of what we're doing. We can certainly lay out the terms and conditions for any type of agreement should there be a default or something that happens, and the site would go back to the school system. But as long as this is working and generating revenue and doing the things we need to do, because again, the challenge is to attract the outside capital. We don't want this to be a flyover project. We want outside capital to come in, and that's what we need to do.
That's why I wanted to ask the question. No, that makes sense. I just wanted to emphasize that the school district can't have liability with regards to debt and stuff like that. So
Correct.
long as that can be worked out.
Yep,
Yeah.
we're very much aware of that.
Carl is next, and then I'm going over to this area. And because we don't have enough time, what we have to do is balance the need for information. We said it at the outset, that's what we're doing, all right? You will have an opportunity to ask some more questions. Everybody cool your heels. Carl, please go.
All right, so I just want to put it on record. I love the presentation, of course. I'm a fan, and I love the fact that brothers came up and presented it. I'm unapologetically biased about that. But I kept seeing the point over to the general contractor. Who's the general contractor? And what is the DBE plan? Because I know the school district is working on making sure we have intentional, equitable inclusivity in terms of how we spend our money. So who's the general contractor? And we have a lot of plans about the equity and the funding, et cetera. What is the plan for intentional, local, Black and brown, women-owned and controlled businesses doing work on this project? I took exception earlier to where there was a statement made about not having capacity, and then we immediately brought up bonding, et cetera, earlier in this evening. So I wanted to hear specifically, and I always say this, if we don't have capacity now, we'll never have it, especially if we're not doing projects in our own community. So where's the general contractor? What's the DBE inclusivity plan?
That's a great question. That's a great question. And the general contractor that Gary has brought in, the team has brought in is Whiting Turner. And for those of you who don't know who Whiting Turner is, they're one of the largest general contractors in the country. They have a presence in 60 cities across the country. They have substantial bonding capacity. They have a significant and substantial WBE, EBE participation program. And I would encourage you to go online to the website to take a look and see. We actually have some of the regional executive leadership with us here tonight. Our senior project manager, Bogdan Minda, and Jesse Beam. Whiting Turner has been in this with us full throttle for the past 2.5 years and haven't been paid a dime. We haven't paid, nobody's been paid, and they're committed to the project. We were just talking about local participation, head counts for the types of numbers that we're talking about in terms of pre-construction, during construction, post-construction. What are we going to do and how that's going to work? Whiting Turner has an excellent model for the way that they work with the community, work with local contractors. They make a stated commitment to that, and it's promulgated all over their website.
And Whiting Turner is a partner with the Evolve Youth Trades Academy. I'm a board member of them. Patricia Robinson, she works with a bunch of local school districts to have trades programs. So one of my biggest challenges for our general contractor is to hire inclusively. And obviously without there being a quote unquote pipeline of contractors, that's where the involvement of our nonprofit and partnerships with the entities like the Evolve Youth Trades Academy allows us to create that pipeline and educate those students while properties like William Penn or the old McDevitt are being constructed. They get to be a part of that project, be educated, and then be journeymen after the completion. So Whiting Turner is a part of that program, and Jesse and Bogdan could certainly go into much more depth about the percentages of MBE participation, et cetera, which we can include that in a post report if needed.
Great, thank you. It's more of a request. In addition to the pro forma, are you able to provide us with like construction schedules, or even if it's just like an overall concept of like phase 1 is to do housing, phase 2 is to like renovate the inside, even if it's not now, just when you provide the school board information?
Short answer is
Thank you.
yes. Short answer is yes. A Gantt laying out the entire project, a pro forma, and then how we would phase that. Short answer is yes.
Okay. The short answer is yes. Can we have a round of applause for our two presenters, okay, tonight? And I want to thank all of you for coming out. That was, I mean, it's December 17th. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks to the task force. And I'd like to ask Dr. Susky to come forward and make some closing remarks. And also I'd like to acknowledge that Dr. Henry has joined us. Please just wave your hand and please come forward, make some additional comments. Thank you all. Look for the Google Docs.
I'd just like to thank everybody for their time. It's such a busy time of year for coming out this evening to hear these two presentations. As a follow-up to some of the things that some of the task force members asked, you did hear in this second presentation many of the elements that were suggested by the subcommittee of the task force. So what I want to acknowledge for total transparency's sake is that when we disbanded as a group back in January and Sheila came and presented at the board meeting, we knew what the subcommittee was looking for in terms of something to address trades, something to restore. the building to its original architecture as much as possible. With all that said, and I know that Ms. Rafika is on the Zoom call tonight, so I want to acknowledge the fact that Rafika Muhammad brought to our attention back in January that there was an EPA grant, a community change grant that was out for consideration. So the school district immediately jumped on that opportunity and through our grant writer started the process of writing that grant and have been working diligently to incorporate every one of the suggestions that you brought forward, including how we could have a fire substation, a police substation on that property. So what you heard there, these were all ideas that came from this task force group. When we got down to close to the end of having to submit for that grant, and I can tell you there were numerous hours spent with the administrative team and the grant writers, what we came to learn was that we as an environmental justice city here in Harrisburg have a really strong opportunity to compete for the $10 to $20 million for this particular grant. But what we learned was that the school district could not be the applicant. It had to be a nonprofit. And since the bridge had already engaged the school district in several opportunities because our kids go to the bridge for programming, our kids were involved in their summer camps. They were part of these grant discussions, as were many people on the task force, many people in the community. So when they talk about the 90-day sprint to the finish, that's because on November 21st, they had to submit a grant application, and this team over there did that. So we should know within the next month or so whether or not the bridge is awarded that grant. The school district is listed as a partner, as are some other entities throughout the city listed as partners. It's a community change grant. So when they talked about solar, it's all about environmental justice. How can we bring in opportunities for solar that could actually power this school and save the school district money? Okay. How can we incorporate gardens, the aquaponics, the hydroponics, all of those things? So again, we don't know whether or not we're going to get it, but we were told we have a really good chance. We have a very strong application. So I just wanted to acknowledge, because I know for the first presentation, you said, this is what we've already heard. That was presented years ago. What you heard tonight by the second presenter is something that has been in the works since the task force disbanded back in January. So again, I'd like to thank everyone for their time this evening coming out. In the coming days, look for a survey form that you will be invited to complete. This is for task force members to provide their feedback. School board, you will have another opportunity to provide feedback through another venue. And then based on the feedback, we will schedule a time in January to reconvene and have some task force dialogue about where we go next. Thank you. Dr. Henry.
Thank you all. I'm on the tail end of all of this and learning so much about it. One of the things I'm going to say real quick is just a commitment to everyone in this room to make this a better place, Harrisburg. And so I'm just happy just to be here and be a part of this team. So thank you all for the presentation. I cannot wait to see where we go with this property. Thank you.